spend as much time as you can learning about these technologies because things are changing all the time, and we need to get to a place where we have a sort of general or basic understanding of how these technologies actually impact us on a daily basis. I mean, it could be from, I mean, we have access to these technologies on our mobile devices. We are on a computer device which uses these technologies, and so it's often it doesn't appear directly in our faces because we don't think about it. But ultimately, a lot of these technologies are going to determine how we interact with each other in the future. So we need to stay alert. We need to keep informed, and we need to talk about these topics.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Engatica's interview series. I'm your host, Jacob Olinger, and we're glad to have you join us today. And today we have on the show Nathan Ross Adams, a data and tech lawyer who helps South Africa's most innovative organizations navigate their digital data and tech law challenges. He combines legal, commercial, and technical insights to give my clients holistic solutions. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Jacob.
The Engatica interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world, a platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, and technologies that will help you grow your business. Come be a part of our community, learn, share, and grow with us. So Nathan, your expertise comes from an interesting combination of both the legal and technical field. Could you talk more about your work and how you navigate organizations' data and technical law challenges?
Yes, thank you so much, David. So yes, I do have an interesting background. I often get that comment about my background, but what I thought is that, you know, the traditional legal space is very stuck in this very traditional pathway where lawyers study law and they go deeper and deeper into different areas of law, but they don't branch out into related fields or allied fields, as it's called. And I noticed that the world was moving towards a completely new tech space. I mean, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. We're moving towards integrating technology into our daily lives at a rapid pace, a pace that hasn't been seen before. And based on that, I realized that, you know what, I need to have some technical insights if I want to help technical clients in the software industry, in the data industry, to deal with their challenges. And I couldn't just come from a legal perspective and tell them what to do if I didn't have an understanding of what they do. So I spent some time learning a bit about computer science, data analytics, statistics, artificial intelligence, and the different techniques of artificial intelligence like machine learning and deep learning. And essentially what I do is I combine the insights that I gain from the legal field, from my legal studies, and then also from my technical studies, so that when I enter a room or conversation with people who are in the technical space, but also in the legal space, I can actually communicate with both of them and also share their ideas. Sometimes I'm referred to as the tech law whisperer amongst some of our clients, but it's just to actually bring everyone to the table to create understanding and to ensure an efficient communication.
Okay, so what would be one of the most what's a time where you've had, when has your combined experience been the most useful? So like, for instance, when has there been a problem that you've had a very unique approach to in the law field, and because of your combined experience, you've been able to provide a better outcome for your clients?
Okay, perfect. So there were certain legal requirements. I can't mention names of any clients, but I can give you a practical example. We had a client who is in the software industry, and they wanted to adopt AI to improve their customer service with their clients. And So what we did is we looked at the problems. Obviously, we needed to consider some data issues. So there are issues like data protection, intellectual property, and then also an emerging issue is one of algorithmic bias. So the bias that are perpetuated by machine learning models in across the AI lifecycle. And instead of just looking at it from a purely legal perspective and saying, okay, you can't do this because there are laws preventing it, we looked at, okay, uh, when we collect the data that we're using to train the algorithms, are we actually collecting data that is necessary? Is all the data necessary? Are we collecting maybe too much data? Because if we could limit the scope of the data, a lot of the legal requirements would fall away, because the legal requirements currently just focus on personal data. And if that personal data could just be, for example, de-identified, and the participants, or the people that would be using the AI didn't need their data to train the AI model, then it would be very helpful for us. And so we managed to save a big chunk of money for the organization by just de-identifying the personal data that they would actually need to train the machine learning models.
Wow, that is cool. What are some ways in which AI and data analytics can help and enhance lawyers in their professional life? I guess that's
Mm.
kind of similar to what you just talked about, but like compared, like what issues do you think you have a different perspective on than other lawyers? I guess you kind of talked about the de-identifying of personal information, but is there anything else out there where you're like, I I can take a new and good perspective on this because of my background?
Definitely. So, in the legal space, there are so many opportunities for using automation to improve legal processes. Anything from interacting with clients to interacting with the justice system and informal tribunals. There are processes that many of us go through on a day-to-day basis as lawyers, which don't need to be as complex as they are. And there's a space for using automation technologies to automate those processes. Then, from a data analytics perspective, there is a potential, especially in a court context, to actually determine which judges decide in a certain way. Are certain judges favored towards the private sector than the public sector? Are judges discriminating against certain categories of people? And then from just from a document automation perspective, there's a big opportunity for contract lifecycle management and legal tech that uses AI. The only challenge at the moment is that a lot of lawyers, and rightly so, are resistant to legal tech because it means it would cut down a lot of their billable hours that they would need to spend. But what they don't realize is that even though the billable hours will be cutting down, they can potentially offer more services and make up with that by offering the services to more clients.
Mhm. Yeah, that is definitely unique. Now, to kind of jump topics onto something that's been in the news a lot and is kind of exploding into the general public's imagination. DeepFake is one of the AI models which got famous for its capability to generate realistic videos of people from a reference in an event happening. Can From this technology, can a reference to an event happening no longer be considered legal evidence if a deep fake can fabricate such video? And how does the legal community see this? And what are your thoughts on deep faking in general and the future of law?
Perfect. Yeah, so what a lot of people misunderstand from this is that deepfakes doesn't only apply to video. It's actually broader than that. So it's any synthetic video, but it could also include synthetic images, synthetic voice recordings. If I give you some practical examples from a video perspective, it could be recording series of television interviews by politicians and then replicating that on social media. The same with voice. If you have recordings of a major international celebrity who sings really well, you could actually take their voice and then use it to manipulate it so that you could have their voice maybe on a telephone call that would answer a specific call. So there are a lot of practical applications. People are right to be scared about it because it's largely unregulated, and there are multiple risks. I mean, there are risks of fraud. And a common example may be banks generally and insurers use voice authorization to actually to authorize whether an individual's identity, and deepfakes with voices in particular can actually result in their voice being imitated to a very high degree, but which is obviously high risk. So there is a big need for regulation of deepfakes, but also AI generally, and that's why I'm a strong proponent of regulation for AI that balances the need for innovation versus the need to protect humans from harm. But when it comes to an evidence perspective, look, I do believe that the current evidential rules can be adapted, or not adapted, but used in a way that one party can dispute the accuracy of a video that may be submitted to court or to a tribunal. But the question again comes in, how do they dispute it? And that would require that there's some forensic investigator that comes in and does an analysis of the video and identify certain data points in the video that illustrate that it's deepfakes. An alternative to this would be to mandate deepfake companies to have a pulse in their videos to say that, okay, let's pulse this so that if this video appears online, organizations or people can actually detect if this is a real video or a deep fake. But for that to happen, for that to be mandated, it needs to be regulated, and governments need to introduce policy, strategy, policy, and regulation to make sure that that doesn't happen. But my thoughts are that, again, it comes down to regulation. There's a definite need for regulation. There's a need for regulation to take place, you actually need people like you and me and your broader audience having conversations about these topics, because you need expertise. You need people who understand the law and understand the technology that's busy disrupting the law.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me how technology is usually up here with innovation, and then the law is somewhere 5 years, 3 years behind in catching up with that. So thank you for your unique perspective. Is there anything else in particular, like any other emerging technology like deepfakes, that you would like to share your thoughts on with the audience?
Definitely. So, well, you see, the thing is with AI in particular and the emerging technologies out there, they're disrupting multiple industries. But the trends that we're noticing, or that I'm noticing in particular, that is, it's starting in consumer industries where it involves banks and insurers. They seem to be the drivers in the industry of using these technologies. They would use AI, for example, to decide whether to grant a loan to someone. Then one of the big risks with AI relates to social scoring as well. So it's been in the media quite a bit, where certain countries and territories are using systems to attribute a score to a citizen in that country, and then based on that score, decide whether to offer that citizen services. For example, if they have 5 traffic fines, then they may lose their license. They may also not be granted certain loans because they're not deemed responsible citizens. So it's sort of gamifying the entire process. Social scoring is a big issue over there.
Okay. Yeah. Like I remember in my college, there was a huge thing about the Chinese social credit system, which we heard from our foreign students in China wasn't actually something that they knew about, but it's still scary to think that that's something that even exists in the world, where you're constantly being watched because our lives are so integrated with technology. Yeah,
definitely. And another big issue that is probably quite topical at the moment is AI used for cyber warfare. I mean, there's war going on in Europe. We all know what's happening at the moment. And the facial recognition technology combined with AI and drones have been deployed and involved in that. And it's sort of and with the regulations that are out there, like the European Union's AI Act and Canada's AI Act, and I think Brazil's as well, a lot of these laws that generally apply to AI exclude military applications. So the result is that the rules fall away if it's in a matter of national security. So I think that's also something to think about.
Yeah, that is very, very scary to think about. I remember there's a show somewhere about like trying to show the dangers of AI applications, and it started off with these drones that would go around and like help people and recognize people, recognize needs and stuff, and then it ended with them going around and just committing mass destruction because they misidentified people, or because the person controlling the AI just decided to mess around with it. And the entire point was to show that misapplication of AI can lead to some very scary situations. So I 100% see where you are coming from. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your perspective with us today. Thank you. Is there anything else, any other topics you'd like to touch on before we wrap up?
I'd just say that I give a bit of advice to say that spend as much time as you can learning about these technologies, because things are changing all the time, and we need to get to a place where we have a sort of general or basic understanding of how these technologies actually impact us on a daily basis. I mean, it could be from, I mean, we have access to these technologies on our mobile devices. We are on a computer device which uses these technologies, and so it's often it doesn't appear directly in our faces because we don't think about it. But ultimately, a lot of these technologies are going to determine how we interact with each other in the future. So we need to stay alert. We need to keep informed, and we need to talk about these topics.
Yeah, so speaking on that, like, what are some sources that you use to stay informed on these topics? Or do you have any like recommended resources for people to reach out to if they're more curious?
Definitely. So I write about this topic quite a bit. I've published a few articles online, but generally what I do is my advice to people is use Google Alerts, use your search engine alerts, identify certain topics that you're interested in. So if it's AI and insurance or AI and drones, create a keyword search and then create email alerts for yourself. And then you wouldn't have to go out to do all the searching. It would just come to your inbox and you could stay in the loop with what's happening. And then also just to flag the keywords in news sites. So Google has the advantage that it does sort of aggregate all the information so that you and tailor to you. So that's one of the advantages. But if you are apprehensive of Google, then I would suggest that you just go to certain sites that maybe deal with the legal issues like Lexology, and then set up those alerts. Otherwise, yeah, just read.
All right. Thank you for sharing with us today. For more content, subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you with a new expert soon. Thank you. You're great.
Thanks.